I'm Andre, 26 years old, and I approve this message. Over 24 million children live absence of their biological father. 95% of homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists motivated by displaced anger come from fatherless homes. 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. 63% of youth suicides come from fatherless homes. 85% of youth sitting in prison today grew up in a fatherless home. Um, I feel, I feel weird. I'm kind of drawn on the line of, how I feel about the whole epidemic and the cycle continuing. Um, it's definitely something that we do have to, at some point in time, I think, as men, come together and and sit down and figure out a better way because it didn't work in the past, as shown by present and future generations that are coming up now. Only thing that you get out of a situation like that is a negative. You get the most possible negative situation out of a person, 95% of times out of situations like that when there's no father around, very few people, are strong-minded enough to navigate themselves through such situation and still stay on the right path. Um, I think that nowadays a lot of times fathers are leaving because what you have is a lot of teen pregnancies, a lot of teen parents. So when you have two young, not yet mature, two children themselves, trying to raise a third child, it's kind of hard, because basically you have three children in a situation now where, somebody has to pull away from being a child and then, automatically start making decisions like you were 40 years old, decisions that you probably never made in your life. It puts you in a situation where your better judgment is not really there, especially at a younger age when when you have no responsibility, when it's your first actual responsibility in life as a child. It takes a burden on your life. It takes a burden on your future. It takes a burden on your mental stability. It takes a burden on your emotional stability and physical as well. Because now, you're forced to be, you're a god to somebody. You have a child, it's like you're a god until this person gets to a certain stage in their life when they can make their own legal decisions, and you're legally God in that person's life, because you control pretty much, how their life's going to turn out. They're going to have a good future or a bad future. You play a large part in that aspect of the child's life. And I think a lot of times we don't really understand the effect of us saying, you know what, fuck this, I'm out of here. We don't understand the effect it has on our children. A lot of times we make these choices based on our own emotions and our own feelings and stuff that we're going through at the time. We'll base it on our own selfishness. So it's definitely tough though to leave. And I'm definitely speaking from both sides of the fence. I didn't know my father, growing up in Jamaica, in some real tough times. I used to go bathe in a river, go outside and go hunt. When I remember when I first came to America in history class, in a history book, and it was a fourth grade history book, they were teaching us about my first history lesson in America was the hunters and gatherers. And as I was reading the book, This is like Asian history to most people in the class, and I'm reading the book, and this is still where I was at. This is the life I just came from, I had to go gather my food and hunt and do this and do that, so growing up and seeing stuff like that, through that aspect of life and understanding, you know, really understanding what a day-to-day struggle is, it was definitely hard not having my father there. I would definitely say that I can't say I don't know if I'd be a better person, but I'd be in a better situation. Had he just been there, throughout throughout my life for, times when you need it, because, it's very hard. The hardest thing is for a woman, to raise a man, because there's just certain things that my mom was just, she wasn't able to teach me. There's certain things that I just had to go learn on my own, not because my mom didn't want to teach me, or because she didn't want me, to learn the best possible way. She tried her best, but at the same time, that sense of the belonging, that sense of, you know, somebody cares about me other than my mother. Because I think a lot of times too, what happens is when you're growing up in these areas, you have, it's really, everybody knows, okay, you know what, it's a single parent, he's with his mom. So, every child grows up knowing, okay, my mother cares about me. So I think a lot of part of it I was missing was the care for my father, and it made me angry when I was young, it made me very angry. Growing up in Brooklyn, I think I was getting 2, 3 fights a day, you know, and then I would come home, school, call my mom, tell her, oh, he was just fighting today, and then my mom would take her anger out in her personal life out on me, She used to, I used to pretty much, I used to basically come from school and know that I was going to get a beating every day, and that whole situation made me a little bit more angry at my father, because I always felt like, if he was there, maybe I wouldn't be going through this, and I think about my father not being there, a lot of emotions arose in me, and it got to the point where, I even hated my mother, for a very long time, because of all the physical and emotional abuse that I was taking from her. So I went a very large part of my life hating everybody, hating my mom. I definitely hated my father. He was never there, so it wasn't even that I hated him. I just didn't care. Hating my mom and missing my father. So it really, it weighed a lot on me. I think more so knowing that, for those of you who's familiar with the Brooklyn area in Brooklyn, New York, I lived on Troy Ave, Troy and Montgomery. I met my father when I was in 5th grade. Now I'm living on Troy and Montgomery. My father's living on 49th and Foster. I'm saying, for those familiar with the Eastern Parkway area, I'm saying, that's really just straight down Utica from, you basically go from the Parkway and to Avenue D, that's really that was the distance between me and my father. And from the time I met him, I probably seen him 7 times. Between then and between then and high school, I guess my second year in high school, probably seen my father 7 times. It was sad. It was tough. So now, the years went by, and I kind of found myself in a similar situation. When I was 16, going on 17, I found out that, I was gonna be expecting a baby, expecting my first daughter. And what happened was that, being the situation that I went through with my from my father and my mother, and even with my birth, you know, when my mother was pregnant, because my father wasn't there, and she didn't want to go through it on her own, she started the abortion process. And, it was actually my grandfather, God rest his soul, um, that stopped her. He actually kidnapped her, so big thanks to my grandfather. I know you out there looking out for me, but, if my grandfather had not kidnapped my mother, held her for at the time period, because I guess she took the first pill. It was a process that she had to go through. She went for the first visit, the meeting, whatever, and she went back for the second visit. When they were supposed to actually start the process the next day, they made an appointment, go, and, this is the day we're going to go, and we're going to actually terminate the pregnancy. My grandfather held her back, so she never really, she never got the chance to go. So, she was kind of forced to have me in some sort of way. It's kind of against her will. So, with that being said, and that in the back of my mind, when my daughter's mother was pregnant at the time, she kind of, she went around the route of having an abortion. I chose differently because of the situations that, I went through, and somebody blessed me with my life. So I said, I thought I was doing the right thing for myself and everyone else. So I said, I'm gonna have this kid. You know what? Nothing's gonna stop this. I'm gonna have this kid, and we're gonna make it happen, and we're gonna make it work. So really, when I went into it kind of blindfolded. I never really understood, what really I was going to go, what I was getting ready to set myself up for, what I was getting ready to step into. So as the years went by and the years went along, and that's about what, 5 years. About 5 years, going on 5 years, since I've actually physically seen my daughter. I mean, it's tough, saying, because I wanted nothing more. There's nothing more important to me in my life than my daughter. And it hurts me to know that I can have somebody out there that I care for so much, because I love my daughter more than anything in this world. I care for this young girl so much, and and her life is the way it is. She's part of statistics. She's part of the numbers. She's joined the number game. In a negative sense, and I think that's the hardest part. Being, considering yourself, a man, or anything, is that. Even though I might take care of everything else around me, and everything else around me might be straight, not having my daughter, or not being in my daughter's day-to-day life it's probably the toughest thing ever. And I would sacrifice everything. Just so her to understand, really, I love her. Regardless of whatever, mom go through, never at one point, never have any single point ever that have anything to do with, with my daughter. It was always just, two young kids, going through emotional situations, like, I was accused of cheating on her. And for some people, I guess when you're in love, love sometimes, love is a cold thing, and I broke her heart, and I'm not